The older I get, the more I wonder, what is leadership? What do leaders say and do to inspire people? Is leadership just about productivity or success, or is it about something more? Can leadership save lives? This is the Next Chapter podcast. I'm Jeremy Graham, and for this episode, I sat down with two leaders I admire very much. First, Anthony Perez is a Navy veteran and entrepreneur. For over a decade, Anthony has been coaching professional durability and leadership. His TED Talk is about how being a leader also means being a servant. In addition, we're joined by Damian McCabe, Director of Behavioral Health at UC Health and Director of the Next Chapter program. This is our conversation. So what would you say are the parallels to military leadership and business leadership?
So, listen, man, I'm known for just telling you like it is, okay? Listen, I got into the Navy when I was 19. I didn't know a lot about a lot. I joined the Navy to get out of a bad situation in my home, okay? So there was a lot of room for me to grow. I was fortunate. I had a grandfather that was military. It was a great example, but he didn't teach me how-tos. It was more just observing, and so when I got in the military, I learned a lot, okay? But it was more on the management side, right? Even after I put some chevrons on, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that you really have to work on getting the best out of people, because there's going to be people that you have to exhaust your resources. When you're a business owner, when you're a leader, you got to learn that you can't just pick and choose. You can't just go, well, you know what? You're not going to work. You don't get that option, right? When you're stationed with somebody, when you're on a team, a squadron, or in the trenches, you got to figure it out. Right, and as a leader, you got to exhaust your resources to figure out how do I connect so we can get together and accomplish the mission. Mm-hmm. But when I transitioned out of the military, I had a lot of ex-military in financial services with me, so they were able to, merge that, and they were older than me. They went before me, so that's where I got a lot of mentorship to really teach me about how to become a great leader. One thing that I learned early on was, regardless of what the business is, we're all in the people business, okay? And there's only two guarantees in the people business: reward and disappointment. So as a leader, right, your job every day is to figure out, how do I maximize reward and minimize disappointment? And I've found that that's accountability and influence, right? So,
Anthony, so really we launched into this conversation already. And I'd like to back you up a little bit. And there's a theme appearing already, and that's the theme of observing others and seeing what mentors do, not giving up, looking for opportunities to either succeed or make things work, or maybe just survive. Can you take us back to when you were 18, 19 years old? What was the process for you coming into the military? Where was that point where you said, that's it, I'm joining the military?
I mentioned my grandfather was my foundation. Getting up early every morning. He ran the Legion. I was always around veterans, right? The parade, always veterans. He did his part, worked with the VFW, and I always worked with him. And he was an example of how you show up in the community, how you serve other people, being an entrepreneur. The the whole stereotypical cliche, fourth grade education, and he was running a chemistry plant or something. Like what? I wrestled. Anybody that wrestles knows that there's a certain kind of just that grind that you got to get up and you got to do it by yourself, and that all kind of led me to a place where college didn't really work out. I wasn't ready for it. And like I said, some things weren't going on good at home. And, not to date myself, remember the robocalls? The GI Bill calls?
You're dating both of us here,
yeah,
Anthony,
right.
So
and,
we're good with the robocalls.
I used to hang up all the time. And then that one day, okay, man.
You made a mistake.
Let's talk.
He answered the phone.
And I went down to talk with the Army recruiter, and I went in there, and they're like, he's not here. And then, here's the sailor in his blues, smoking a cigarette, with his leg on the wall. And he's like, what was that? I'm like, I came to see so-and-so, and he stood me up, and he's like, you were going to join the Army? son, don't you want to see the world? And 45 minutes later, I was promised a bunch of things that did not happen. And
Standard.
And I ended up going to boot camp, and away we go.
So you're on the Orions, sub-hunters.
Yep.
And the back of that plane, you described it, you sit in the back and play with radars. And it's way more sophisticated than sit in the back and play with radars, right?
Yeah.
But the Orion is also an aircraft that crews flew into very difficult circumstances around the world, and not on more than one occasion happened to, unfortunately, find themselves in foreign countries that don't particularly like us.
Sure.
So that concern and that threat, even though it was a sub-hunter potentially flying up and down the East Coast, that threat was always still part of your work.
Absolutely. I mean, anyone that knows the Orion community, you say sub-hunter, and when I talk to sub guys, everybody laughs at it because they're like, we can't find subs. To justify that platform, though, we served over Bosnia with cameras. We put harpoons. I did a lot of drug interactions, tracking planes. So it was, what can we use this platform, this plane for? And yeah, there were a lot of times where we were put in harm's way, really offering support. And a lot of times, I met a guy up in Cripple Creek that we were in Bosnia at the same time. The difference was he was on the Army down below, and I was up 30,000 square feet giving support. Troop movements. Yeah. It was kind of like, wait, that was kind of interesting.
So the process of transition, it's really different for everyone. And so for some folks, the opportunity presents. For other folks, it can be quasi-involuntary, right? It could be a medical thing. It could be a failure to school or an inability to progress in rank, something that causes their trajectory in the military to change abruptly, and they may not be prepared for transition. But even for folks who are career, lifers like myself, that time looms out on the calendar. That date is out there, that year is out there, and you have to begin that process of transition. You said you had some things lined up. They didn't just magically appear, right?
No. Well, actually, the opportunity was presented to me by LDO. I just talked to him today. He's still my mentor. He taught me a lot. For the
non-squids?
A limited duty officer. He was enlisted, and then he made it up to lieutenant commander. We met through a referral. There was a classmate, an AW1, a first class petty officer, and he gravitated towards me. I was a class leader. I just got married, and all the other guys were knuckleheads out of high school. And he's like, you know what? I need to talk with you. And he gave me some knowledge. And he talked to me about money and finance, and we connected with my friend Jay. He showed me how I got taken advantage of in life insurance, and the next thing you know, I was learning about financial services, and I said, hey, this is a good opportunity. I was talking to my friend John, who we worked together in the business. He's still in financial services. I said, John, my thing was, I realize I'm an entrepreneur. It just made sense to me that I could build a business and get paid what I'm worth. It wasn't so much about the product. And because now if you look at my history, I've had 6 different businesses, and it's just more about, hey, this I could see there's an opportunity here. But the training that I got, the mentorship, the people that I saw around me, they saw something in me. They took me under their wing, and I was moving in that right direction. And so I was confident I had an opportunity, And then I did try to get, hey, I put my feelers out there, and it didn't really pan out. So I was like, well, this is the opportunity. I'm going to trust that God put this in my path for a reason, and there's good people around me, and they believe in me. So why am I getting stuck on stupid, right?
Yeah, if we could can what you just said, if we could put that in an aerosol and spray it over everybody that's in transition, things would be a whole lot better for veterans. Right. You tapped into this idea that if you look around you, you see good people around you. Who were the people around you that helped you take that inventory of yourself, that caused you to pause and say, this is who I am, and here's where I want to be?
Probably the same folks, like I referenced Jay and Mike, and my ex-wife. We were both in the squadron in the military. I've built some really good relationships here in the community. I see Bob all the time. And, to your point, I don't know if you know, around this time last year, I was going through a storm, and I was I realized that I became disengaged with the things that were important to me. One was faith. Took my car spinning around on the highway in the morning to go make amends for my actions the night before that weren't my finest moments. And the car spinning out, and very clearly I heard, "You're not in control of your life. I am." And I took my foot off the gas, and I was just like, and I realized at that point, I'm out of alignment. Like I'm forcing things. This pressure, like I was just getting hit by stuff, and I wasn't handling it very well. And why? Because I was on an island. I wasn't plugging in with the folks that I used to. I wasn't processing things that happened in my life, a divorce and all the right. It was a lot that I was just like, I got this. And for me, that was that, you got to look inward. See what's going on. You got to look outward for resources and support. But one thing that I find that a lot of people are getting away from, got to look upward, man. You got to stay connected in whatever that looks like, whether it's just meditation or whatever. But you just write yourself an IOU to check in with yourself. Look inward. What's going on? Are you good? Right? Let's look outward. Is it a friend? Is it therapy? Is it just whatever? There's so many resources out there, but man, get grounded and look upward and just, make sure that you're in alignment with all that. I know for me at that time, and it was about a year ago, I was at this point where I just was like, I don't really have a lot of friends. I got a lot of acquaintances. The pandemic happened, my phone wasn't really ringing. It was kind of a call, right? I know I'm not alone. A lot of people felt the same, like, man, I got to make some changes. And when I was going through that, I stopped and I realized, okay, and I made like 6 phone calls. Dr. Washington, my friend John, Jay, a couple people. They stopped and gave me what I needed, which was love. They reminded me of who I am. Don't beat yourself up, forgive yourself. This is why you're going through this. And they are all like, but Anthony, you're disconnected, man. But I had multiple phone calls with people that reminded me that, hey, you know what? I'm not alone. But the one thing I needed to make some changes were some folks here. And now I do have a pretty good network that I could call on, that we support each other. And I think that's it. And when service members get out, I think it's very important. And I found that even if it's in other states, they don't need to but keep that. Because whether it's a couple years or 7 years or 10 years, you've gone through some stuff, right? You've seen the best and the worst. You need that person that could call you out on your shit too. There's sometimes where you need a hug, and sometimes you just need a slap, and like, yo, come on, man. So. Yeah,
you're tapping into, a whole bunch of those things that earlier on people would say to you, well, you're a veteran. And somehow that meant something. Somehow that gives you status or privilege. And I don't think people often know when they say that to us, actually what that means. We don't ask for status or privilege in our community. Some communities are better than others at ascribing it or sharing it with us. But what it does mean is that in our back pocket, somewhere, for every one of us, there's some names. There's some people we know that if we haven't seen them in 20 years and we call them up on the phone, it's going to be like we saw them yesterday. You and I are going to share a stage later this week at the Veterans Business Conference here in town. And I'm going to be opening that day up, much like this conversation. And you're going to close it up with potentially, for some of those folks in that room, who are in the place you were last year. Struggling, stressing, worrying, anxious, looking for, what's my next customer, what's my next revenue generator. We're going to do that. But we don't know each other as veterans, right? We've met at a couple of meetings, but we don't know each other. Tell me a little bit about how it's possible that 2 strangers like us can share that same experience. And we have not sat down and had a beer?
If you see my email or my company, right, when I got out of financial services, I discovered social emotional learning. And I was like, hey, this is just professionalism. And it was a common core standard in Chicago public schools. And I started chasing, going down the rabbit hole. And my conversation was, you got science for science, you got math for math. But where's the class for social emotional learning? And there was no answer. Right?
That's phenomenal to hear that from you.
Right. It was just like, just by habit, like because you're in a social setting. So I took it upon myself to Daniel Goleman, taking all the courses and all that, and I started doing workshops and trainings. And then I was like, hey, it works in K-12. Oh, I went in law enforcement. I went to NFL. I went business, hospitality. My point is that my company is called Success as a Language. And a lot of times people go, I like that. And I go, what does it mean? I go, well, math is universal. Right? You could have a bunch of people in a room that don't speak the same language, but they could speak that. I believe that success is a language. And I believe that, and I tell people, do you ever see two people connect and they never even know each other? It's because they're reading the same things. They're seeing the same things. They've gone through the same experiences. They've got the same perspective in different things, but they're different.
If we had somebody out there today who's just struggling in work, struggling in their small business, struggling in life, what's one thing we could share with them?
They got to understand that vulnerability is a powerful thing. That, the idea that, it's not weak. I teach about servant leadership. Anybody that knows me knows I'm the furthest thing from weak, right? I'm going to tell you like it is. I like to tell people I'll give you a benefit of doubt till you prove me wrong, and I'll let you know. My point is that just understanding that, hey, listening to you, looking inward, and if you're like, I don't know what it is, man. I mean, the number one thing when I get the surveys that I have to complete, it's, are you feeling anxious? If you're feeling anxious, right, that's not of God, right? That's not, if you're a faithful person, if you've got, that anxiety, we all know when we feel confident and we're like, yeah, we could just, and then we know when we're a little off. And if you're feeling a little off, it's a little anxious about stuff, like just something, talk to a friend and then see where it goes. But there's so many free resources. And if you're a veteran, to contact Next Chat, just to have a chat. It might just be an off day. I've had somebody that I know is like, hey, you know what? It's not a bad you, it's just a bad day. Or what are they, the other way? They said it's not a Monday, it's not a bad day. It's just a bad you. There's been times where Mondays are not my friends and I just got to get through them, and Tuesday's good.
Yeah, I mean, you tap into two things. One is this idea of vulnerability being a strength. What do you see, other than being radically honest with yourself, what do you see to be some of the other barriers to be in terms of transitioning veterans being vulnerable?
The new concept for my new book is fulfillment comes out of forgiveness. I think I'm finding out more and more that there's a lot of folks out there that are struggling with forgiveness, whether it's people in their life and themselves, that they just don't want to embrace. They don't know how to. There's this barrier. So you put that all together, right? It
can become a big pie of ingredients that it's hard to figure out which one's the most important. And certainly you can't take them all at the same time, right?
I've had those thoughts, like, man, I see people on Facebook, they retired as a senior chief. I've seen guys that, they got commission. Man, maybe I should have done the seaman and the admiral. Maybe I could have done my 30 years and I could have walked out. And,
there's always a lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right? The important part is where you are today.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the veterans that will be listening to this, it's really about where are they today and where do they want to be tomorrow. I mean, the whole ethos of Next Chapter is that tomorrow's not written, just like a chapter in a book. What's the sauce? What's the secret sauce that causes you to go, I've accomplished this thing, what's next?
I watched what my grandfather had and what he did, and it was never given. It wasn't one of those. He wasn't the guy to say I love you. He would buy stuff, right? Yeah. He'd buy stuff for you, and that was. And but he worked hard and he made his way, but it was never ever like, well, here's something to start with, right? When I was like 5, it was the first time that I realized there was something. My mom said, hey. Real easy task. Hey, can you run across the street to 7-Eleven, go get some milk? Sure. And she hands me $2 in food stamps. And like I go across, and it was like the first time I knew what they were, but I didn't know. And I watched her buy groceries, but immediately I felt this, and I don't know what it was, right? I just felt, And I go over to 7-Eleven, and I go to walk in, and my friends are in there buying penny candies. And I'm like, and then this, like, now I know it was shame. And I remember to this day, like up against the brick wall, it was summer, the heat and the stone, and just waiting for them to leave. Little did I know, they're on them too. That's why we all lived in the same apartment complex.
I mean, you knew it wasn't real money, but you knew it was the equivalent of money. So.
And I think that was always the thing that I'm going to show that I'm good enough. I'm going to show that, hey, college didn't work out for me, and I knew early on if I want to make my way, I need to create a platform. And the best thing, I'm good at giving to people, and I learned about influence and connecting with people, and I learned that when you create value to people, good things happen for you, to you. When you can bless people, then you receive the blessing. The best thing for a business person is to line up with a charity and a cause. That's why I tell people to get involved with their community. Find something that you're passionate about. One, it gives you access to decision makers, right? It gives you access to decision makers. It allows you to create that platform. And when you're sitting on boards, like I sit on the Red Cross, I was at the state, I'm considering the YMCA, right? I've sat on different boards. You get to connect with other people, and they see you for who you really are. So then you don't have to be like when you're promoting yourself or so. Usually I tell people I don't seek after opportunities, I'm sought after, right? That's when you know you're doing it right. So as a veteran, I'd say, listen, get involved in your community, one. You start meeting the right people, and they get to see who you really are.
Yeah, it's very much sounds like how to insert yourself or be part of an ecosystem. Is there a space or a time where people should be asking themselves, well, I've been thinking about doing all of this a long time, and it's now time for me to do it? Is there a trap in sitting around just thinking about doing it?
Well, what did I say? An idle mind is the devil's
playground.
Yeah.
I can come up with a whole bunch of them, but I was in the Army.
Intentions, right? The path of good and as veterans, we know about taking action. And sometimes it's like not when you want to, right? Like it's not up for debate.
Yeah.
Like, right?
It's reaction as opposed to action.
True, so. Right? For me, the do thing is my stepdad, Gary, when I opened my first business, he gave me this plaque, and it's sat there on the wall for years. And then we moved to Chicago, and I was unpacking, and we got to our new place, and I put it up, and then I read it. Like I read it. And it's a Vince Lombardi quote: individual commitment to a group effort is what makes a team work, an organization, a society work. He was Army. And,
of course he was.
Of course he was. And, then it resonated because it was the time. That's my culture statement. I teach people, you got to have your own culture statement, whatever it is, a quote or a song or whatever. But when you really dissect that, because I'll do a whole leadership on it, and I'll touch on it Friday, it's a call to action as a leader. It's my job to constantly evaluate my individual commitment to those I support and serve every day, right? And we talk about influence. Well, the number one person, we want to be a person of influence, but the number one person you have to influence every day is you.
Yeah, that's powerful, man.
Right?
That's really
so
powerful.
We know this. The more you do, the more you want to do. I tell people all the time, I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to go to church, or I didn't want to go to this event, and I'll be like conflicted, like, I need to go. I've learned early on, when you're in a crossroads and you're like, and fighting with yourself, there's something good there for you. And the more you give to people and the more you do, the more you want to do. So find something to go do, right? And then hold yourself accountable to the things you say are important.
Every day we have veterans call us and looking for service, looking for support. Some of those veterans are in rougher spots than others. Some may be suicidal, some addicted to drugs or alcohol, some homeless, some just knowing that they're on the very edge of losing that, special relationship they've had for 15, 20, 25 years, and they may have to leave their home. How do we help them? What would you offer them to help them get to that place to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I screwed this up? Here's what I'm going to do to try and fix it, to fix me, to grow me, to help me learn what it is to be a better person so I can go on and deliver for me, myself, and those around me, the person I know I can be. What would you share from your lessons in leadership and your successes and failures about that spot in time where people may go into a crisis and get hopeless, or may rise out of that and get help?
I get frustrated a lot about things. It was brought to my attention. I like to say I don't want to abandon my expectations. And I had somebody tell me that it's not about abandoning your expectations, but just understand that you're probably going to get let down a lot, and you just need to process it better, right? My ex-wife used to do this thing that you ever see turn and tap or whatever, pat me, like, hey, I'd be like, hey, are you ready to go? And she'd go, yes. And I'd be like, okay, I'm an A person. Okay, you said go, let's go. And then she'd walk around and like turn up and move stuff, and just made no sense in my mind at all. No, that what we're wasting time, and I would just get. And then I'd rush her, and then she'd get in the car, and she'd get all upset, and she was frustrated because she didn't feel complete in her mind. Did something leave on? I don't feel. And then I ruined the night. And as I was working on myself, I'm like, okay, well, this isn't good, right? What's a better approach, Anthony? So then I learned how simple this could be to you, right? Hey, are you ready to go? She's like, yep. Like, cool, Gabe and I will be out front. And we go out and we throw the ball. Hanging out with my son, because I knew I was going to be out there 20, 25 minutes. She was good. I was good. Sometimes it's just simple little things that you need to change, but you need to look inward to figure out, one, okay, this situation I'm creating is not healthy for anybody, including myself.
You know what's really powerful is two words you said in there. I'm creating.
Yeah, right?
It's powerful, right? Because when you acknowledge that I'm creating it, it's on me, you do it to yourself, you put the power for the resolution in your own hands.
Right. My friend John McCaskill, he Monument SEAL, talk about mindfulness and where he was and where he's at, and how they were all like, well, what? That's just good. I mean, SEALs, bro, what? Mindfulness, what? And it helped him. Like so many things he was struggling with, losing folks, and so talk about the opposite. When he went in and then he's like, this is goofy, and the doc's like, listen, let me ask you something. If I could give you a pill to enhance your performance and allow you to do this, and this, and that, would you take it? He's like, yeah. Cool. I want you to just be silent. Go, what? Now he teaches it.
Anthony, it's been our absolute pleasure to have you here today to talk about the context within which you've been able to sort of parlay your military service into your experience in life so far and your success. But more importantly, to be a member of our community that is sharing that experience through leadership and coaching and support for other veterans who are in transition. I would say the more Anthony's we have, the better this community will be. We will continue to engage with you and connect the dots where it makes sense for next chapter. You and I will share a stage this weekend. I will start out by being the Grim Reaper and setting the conditions for why life, why entrepreneurship and small business ownership can be a grind. And you're going to button it up with, and this is the success that comes from, figuring out how to do it right and to do it in a way that doesn't consume you, but is healthy and successful at the same time. So our gratitude from next chapter, from Jeremy and the team. Thank you very much for coming along today and sharing your thoughts with us.
Oh, well, no, thank you. It was an honor for me. It was a pleasure. We've in passing. So it was really nice to actually just have a conversation and really, get to know you, but also see the similarities. And yeah, I'm excited about the conference. And I think this helped out for me to deliver the message for Friday. So I'll see you Friday. And yes, thanks again for all the great work that Next Chapter does in the community. I appreciate the opportunity again. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been the Next Chapter podcast. Thank you to Anthony Perez and Damian McCabe for their time, their insights, and their service. You can find Anthony's book, Professional Durability, Withstanding the Storm of Change, on Amazon. To learn more about Next Chapter, visit nextchapterco.org. If you or someone you know may be considering suicide, please call or text 988 or chat at 988lifeline.org. See you next time.